Did your lawyer suggest that as well? Or?
He was like, you need to get clean.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to get help.
Yeah.
I think that was his exact words, get help.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't be, go get help.
Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out, but get help.
All right. Welcome to the Epicest. My name is Doug. I'm the host. And today we are going to talk about addictions. I think drug addictions more specifically, not necessarily like gambling addiction or sex addiction, but they all apply. But addictions. And with me, I have my nephew, Teddy Assaly. And Teddy is a recovering. Do you call it recovered?
I say recovered.
Recovered. I say recovered as well.
Yeah.
Recovered addict. And wrote this book. Can I get this on camera? Like right here. And it's called The Chips Are on the Table. Yeah. I started reading it. And it's about it's your life story, right?
It is. Yeah. It's surrounding, it is my life story, but it pertains to addiction and recovery. And it starts off with the addiction. And throughout the story, I talk about addiction. I talk about my personal experience with recovery, and then all my related experiences and principles that I learned along that journey.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that. I'm also a recovered addict. As of December last year, I was 30 years clean.
Ooh, that's huge.
It is huge.
30 years is big.
Huh?
That's big.
Well, it is.
That's like the great milestone.
Well, I don't know.
30 years.
My big milestone, so I used from the time I was 11 till the time I was 32. So that was basically 21 years. And so when I hit 21, that was a big milestone. I had equal sobriety. I matched my sobriety to my using years. You know what I'm saying?
So that's perfect then.
Yeah. Now I'm 30. It's like, I don't know. I just, every day is just another day. So
yeah, but 30 years is long.
Well, I'm older.
I know you don't think about it. I don't think about it either.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the process of recovery. Recovery is a process. It's not a decision. It's not stopping using.
No.
There's so much to it. And did you go to 12-step programs?
I did.
So tell me what some of the things you did to. Well, okay. Let's start with. Why did you end up in recovery? Because I think that's an interesting story.
I mean, that's in the book.
Well, I don't want to give away the whole book. But.
No. Why I ended up in recovery. I'm 6.5 years sober, as you know. But for everybody else, I've been 6.5 years sober. My sobriety date is September 25th, 2017. Nice. So this September will be 7 years, but that's in the future. So I don't think about that now, here or there. Yeah. Because I did do the 12-step work, and I did the steps 1 through 12. I lived my life one day at a time.
You did that in AA or
I did that in AA. I did attend CA meetings for a portion of the time, I would say. Like, it wasn't like my primary group. But I did AA. We'll just say I followed the AA footsteps and
your primary drug was cocaine, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, between alcohol and cocaine, I would say that both those drugs were used. I think it's easier to say that when I first started drinking, I enjoyed it. And then I also picked up other habits along the way, which happened to stick with me was cocaine. So I ended up using cocaine.
So mine was different. Mine was...
Yeah. Like, if cocaine wasn't the first thing I used when I was... Because I probably had my first drink when I was... let's say my first alcoholic drink was probably when I was 13 years old, right? Yeah. So I wasn't doing cocaine when I was 13. But it wasn't long afterwards, at 16, that I tried my first line.
Right.
And I said, oh, this is great. I'll keep it going.
So let's just try and distinguish between that. So I did pot when I was young. I started with pot when I was 11.
Yeah.
And I don't know when, like, the cocaine was the one thing, and I didn't try that until my 20s. And that was the one thing that changed everything for me. It's when sort of I was like, I'm in. Like, I'm in, I'm hooked, I'm going down this path. Like, that was it, Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, cocaine was my primary drug because all the other ones kind of, I used them to numb pain or whatever.
Yeah.
But cocaine was sort of the one that just took me down the path of destruction,
Yeah. Well, it accelerates things.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like an important distinguisher. It was all the drinking, and the drinking was bad, and it led to a lot of bad things. But for the most part, especially when I was younger, drinking was fun and it was enjoyable, and I did it with my friends and everybody else was drinking. It didn't seem out of place at all.
Yeah.
It's when you start throwing in the mix other drugs. And yeah, you mentioned marijuana, but I never really was. I smoked weed. Everyone's, I think, who ends up in addiction tried weed at some point in their life. But cocaine ended up being my accelerator, where when I tried cocaine and I was completely addicted to it from like the moment I tried it, and I was like, I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to, pair it with alcohol, because alcohol's the normal thing to be doing. I drink with
And
my
it brings you
friends.
down from the cocaine.
It does, yeah. And you're drinking, I guess I could say, especially younger on, and I say younger is like before my 20s, and then even in my early 20s, you're at parties, whether it's in high school or university, and drinking was like completely the norm, especially when you're going out to bars.
Sure.
And then the cocaine kind of came after. It was almost like a separate crowd of people. I was like, here's the cocaine people.
But the reason I want to distinguish it is I had a couple of friends who died from alcoholism.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Never got into cocaine or weed or pills. They had liver failure. Right.
Right.
And so there's alcoholism. There's pills. I have had people who are addicted to weed, but never did cocaine or alcohol. Those weren't their things,
Yeah.
So the addiction can be very specific. I mean, yes, cocaine, the natural friend of cocaine is alcohol.
I think so. Yeah.
Because cocaine's an upper and alcohol's a downer, and it kind of balances. I'm not suggesting anybody try that, but
no.
So you got into cocaine, and that sort
early
of
on. Yeah.
And that accelerated your addiction.
Definitely.
Took you to a new level of messed upness.
It did. And I think the only thing that kept it, so I got sober when I was 24, and I got sober again when I was 27. I'll jump into that more. There's more questions around that.
I have a lot of questions around that.
But the reason why I mentioned those two things is that I think that I got sober at 24 primarily because things accelerated so quickly, from
how long
trying
did you
cocaine
stay sober?
when I was 16. I stayed sober for a year.
And you call that sobriety?
I call it,
or do you call that abstinence?
It was my first attempt because I did go to AA and I did do step work. I'm not going to say I did the 12 steps, but I participated
three of the 12,
in. I did participate. Yeah, I did actually. That's accurate. I did 3 of the 12, and because I think it was that fourth step that as soon as that fourth step hits,
fourth step.
You're like, I'm a year's gone by and I'm good. So catch me somewhere else.
That's not uncommon too, by the way. I think that people get into a program, they start the steps, a year passes, and then they feel like, oh, I'm good.
Oh yeah.
And then off they go, and they just go back down.
Well, it was the first, I hadn't done the steps. I participated in AA, but I didn't take it seriously. So I participated in the program. I participated in steps 1 through 3, but I don't know how much I believed it.
It's amazing that people go to a 12-step program, but they don't think about the fact it's a 12-step program.
No, I know.
It needs to be emphasized. It is a 12. There's a reason for 12 steps.
Well, you meet people that haven't even done the steps.
Yeah.
But that's another time.
That's another
conversation.
So I would say you got into recovery, but I don't know that you were recovered. That's just my opinion.
At 24?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I agree with you.
You were just abstaining, really.
I was. I think certain issues had come up in my life, red flags, terrible incidences, whatever you want to call it. And I said, holy shit, I need to stop drinking. This is going to be, what do people do when they stop drinking? Well, I've seen the movies. They go to AA, so maybe I'll call up the local AA hotline and see what's up. Went into my first AA meeting. That being said, there's a whole amazing thing that happened as a result of that, though it was abstaining from alcohol. The people I met in AA were the same people that kind of saved my ass when I was 27, or were part of that recovery process.
But when you went back to
that was a very different process.
You went in like you were, and that's usually what happens with people if they abstain or they do start the recovery process and they go back way harder than when they ended off.
Way harder.
You went way harder.
Like we want to talk about cocaine use. It's like almost like I was going to say the reason why my cocaine use was almost like I could regard it as much less up until 24 or 25 was because of I didn't have the money to afford cocaine the way I could afford cocaine after I turned 25. And the reason is because of the job I had, and the money I was making at the time and just, the people I associated with and, the parties I was going to or the parties I was having. And then all of a sudden cocaine just became this thing where it was like, I'm using cocaine on a regular daily basis. From when I wake up in the morning to basically until I fall asleep, I'm using cocaine.
And then I'm assuming because, just my experience was, I was a dealer, so I had copious amounts of cocaine available, but that I'd have to take something to fall asleep because,
Oh yeah.
like, I would take pills and booze and
Pills and drinking
yeah,
helped. Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I want to clarify this for the audience because
Mhm.
if you've stopped, doesn't mean you're in recovery. If you've stopped using
Right.
for a period of time, that's not recovery. Recovery
Yeah.
is the steps,
Yeah.
and it's fellowship as well,
Mhm.
and it's service. I mean, there's a lot of things to recovery, and stopping is just the beginning of
100%.
yeah,
So, and actually kind of going back to that, that was what I did when I was 24.
yeah,
I stopped.
yeah,
I stopped using because of incidences that happened in my life, and I needed to take a break.
yeah,
I didn't do the recovery. I didn't do the service. I didn't do the fellowship. I just did the abstaining from drugs and alcohol.
yeah.
Basically. So as soon as that year milestone came up, I said, "Fuck it, I'm out.
good.
I'm good." I got pushback actually. What it was this interesting thing where as soon as someone was like, "Oh, why aren't you drinking?" I was like, "No, I'm drinking."
Nice.
I was just like, I didn't want to say, "Oh, I don't drink." Like, I'm afraid of drinking. I was like, no. They're like, I'm out with some friends. They're like, "Oh, why don't you have a beer with us?" And I said, "Sure." A year's gone
I think
by.
that's a
Why
sign of a
not?
recovered addict, by the way, who could say, I'm a recovered addict. I don't drink or I don't,
Yeah.
socially, like it's not a big deal. It's not, there's no shame behind it.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's a good point
Yeah.
because now today I believe that I'm a recovered addict.
Yeah.
And I have no shame.
Yeah.
About it all. I've been all over the world. I've been, just here, anywhere where here. And I can go to a bar or event or be with this person or that person. And someone says, "Would you like a drink?" And I said, "No, I'm good. Thank you."
Yeah.
And I'm actually, I wrote a book on it, but I am so happy to talk about the fact that I don't drink. And I'm not ashamed by the fact that I don't drink because of the way it's improved my life substantially.
Yeah. And is it worth the question I asked myself? Because, I could be sitting around a campfire with buds and say, it'd be nice to have a beer. But is it worth risking my whole life and everything that God's given me
Yeah.
for a beer?
No,
You know what I'm saying?
it never is.
It's not worth it.
No.
Definitely not. So you get to 27,
Mhm.
you're deep in your addiction.
At this point, like, the whole 24 thing, whatever, it didn't last very long, but those years that followed were insane.
Yeah.
It was deep. Like it was daily cocaine use. By the time I got sober, which resulted in me going to rehab and everything, and we can dive more into the whole me getting sober, but it was insane behavior, like in and out every single day.
And you did not make a decision to get sober.
No, the universe or God made that decision
That's
for
right.
me. Yeah.
I think
God, we'll say God made that decision for me. We'll go with that. Higher
certainly
power.
did. I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah.
tell your story, but
Yeah.
from my perspective, standing on the outside,
Yeah.
it was not you suddenly got some wisdom saying, "I'm going to get clean."
No, I wish it came that way. That would have been a lot easier. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because mine came because I was a drug dealer. I had so much drugs available to me that I was going to die. I had, overdosed a few times and I knew I was either going to die or get clean. So
Right.
I wouldn't say it was wisdom, it was desperation.
Yeah.
But in your case, what was it?
What was it? Well, the best way to put it is, I guess, an almost fatal car accident
Yeah.
that resulted in, I don't know how much detail I'm going to go into that particular night, but as a result of drinking and using drugs on a regular basis and the benders that I was on, driving was probably not the best thing to be doing. But I wasn't driving because I wanted to drink and drive. I had drunk and drive quite a bit in my life before. This was more a cry for help, I would say. And I had got myself in a situation, stole a car, and took that car and drove it as fast as I could down the street with the intention of ending my life.
Uh-huh. I didn't know that.
Well, you didn't read the book.
I read a bit of it.
I'm
not a good reader,
No. Well, the audiobook's coming soon.
Okay,
so
good.
we'll get, maybe you're a better listener. I would think so.
I am.
Yeah. So, and I talk about it, I think in the book. Well, I know I talk about it in the book, but I don't think I get into enough detail about it because even when I was writing it, it was painful to come to the realization that even though I was completely out of my mind, like I really had no idea what I was doing, deep down in my subconscious, I was trying to end my life.
Yes.
Because it was a cry for help. My life was miserable. The day in and day out use of drugs and alcohol just to cope with like anything had finally caught up to me. I had made some bad decisions. I've hurt some people.
And that's not uncommon, by the way, Ted.
No.
You look at guys like Chris Cornell, or, these are public figures, but I had a friend who hung himself. He just couldn't kick the habit, and he hung himself.
Yeah.
It's painful to be stuck in addiction.
It is.
I think people, on the outside, it looked like you're having fun, you're partying.
Oh yeah.
You're living, and there's a narcissism in addictions as well. The two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so you have this mask of everything's great, parties, living my life. When I was at my worst, I was at my best. Like I had fancy suits and I lived in a nice house and driving fancy cars, going first, and everybody thought, oh, I want to be like this guy. What they didn't know was I was dying inside.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean physically. I mean, spiritually and emotionally, I thought about suicide every day.
Yeah.
And so the mask of all that you're doing is really just a mask. It's like trying to protect the internal pain.
Yeah.
And so the idea of wanting to end it is not so bizarre when you think about it.
No, and the mask came off, right? The idea of wanting to end it is probably something I had thought about countless times while drinking and doing drugs.
Yeah.
But because I was masking it so well and partying and having a good time, and look at me, look at what I'm doing. My life's so good. It's glamorous. I live this glamorous, fun life. But then it all came crumbling down. And as soon as the walls came crumbling down and I couldn't hide it anymore, I was like, I can't live like this. And realistically, I was driving that car to crash it to have a fatal car crash.
Yeah.
I was, it's all written in there, but it was, I was driving 150 to 160 kilometers an hour within the city and crashed it into the military base. That was, not that I planned to crash it into that military base, but
you might as well.
That was the wall I hit, the gate that I went through. And that car, thinking the speeds I was doing, and this is really important because the car did like a front flip, landed on the hood, all the airbags went off, the whole car was crushed. And I'm sitting in this seat with no seatbelt on. And I survived this crash, this rolling,
I don't even think
flipping.
you had any serious damage, did you?
No, I had none.
It's crazy.
My nose was broken, but I fixed it.
Yeah.
I just snapped it back in later. But it's this miracle that happened, and this kind of gets into the 12 step and the higher power stuff, but not that I knew it at that particular moment, but looking back on it now, I saw the miracle of God. And I saw higher power working in my life before I had even accepted a higher power.
So I'm going to get into that for a second. You have this miracle. You don't know it at the time. You just realize that you've had a terrible accident. You're still alive. Probably a lot of shame, right? You got arrested. Am I correct?
Yeah. Usually when you crash into a military base, you get arrested. Yeah.
And you're high as
it's not like I was running away from the scene of the crime. No. I was pretty incapacitated.
But I got arrested. Did you spend any time in jail?
So I spent the weekend in jail.
And then I know that you had you went to court and
I got bail on the Monday.
Yeah.
I had a good lawyer. I did get bail. And then, sorry, go on with your questions.
Well, so at that point, you don't know that this is a miracle from God.
No.
You're
so
just
like I said,
because you're carrying a lot of shame, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're not even high, and you have no way to mask how awful your life has become.
Yes.
You're sitting in jail for the weekend.
Yeah.
It's a good time to reflect.
I did reflect.
But I'm guessing that you weren't thinking, "Oh, God, save me." It's like
I was praying. I will say this. So I got this incident happen. Terrible as it was at the time. I find myself in jail with all this time to reflect, and I'm sitting in my cell, and I'm thinking to myself, "Well, I fucked up. This is not good. What am I going to do?" Well, I did the only thing I knew what to do, sitting by myself in a cell. I just started praying. The old prayers I learned, I was baptized, raised Catholic.
Yeah.
Not that I was practicing, but I just started praying prayers. And I don't know why. It just kind of came to me that that's what I should do. What else am I going to do? I'm sitting here in the dark alone. I can't sleep. I'm fucked up. I'm just going to pray. So I started praying and praying and praying and praying. And I think through that prayer, I accepted my fate. I said, on Monday, I'm probably screwed. I might not be getting out of here. I don't really know the circumstances and the full, the full thing that's occurred, but I might have the opportunity to get out of here. And if I do, I have to accept whatever comes, whether I stay or go.
Yeah.
On Monday, we'll call it that Monday of that weekend. After that weekend, I did get out. I got bail. And I slowly was like, okay, I have an opportunity here to do something, but I didn't make the decision just yet. I just said, that's amazing. I was thrilled to be out of jail, of course. And my first instinct wasn't, I'm going to go drink. It was, I need to do something.
Yeah.
But it's not drinking and it's not drugs, but I got to do something. Like, obviously I was scared straight at this point as a result of my actions.
And by the way, it's a miracle not only that you survived,
Yes.
that you didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. You know, that car, it's not like I was controlling my driving.
No.
And it was late at night, but there were pedestrians, I'm sure, on the side streets, or I could have crashed into a house or a tree or hit someone on a sidewalk, even if they weren't on the road, or hit another car. But there was no car on the road. I didn't hit any pedestrians. There were people on the street. They saw this incident occur. They saw the accident happen.
So that's another miracle. I mean, the whole thing is a miracle.
Yeah. So it was a miracle that I lived. It was a miracle that nobody died. And it's a miracle that I didn't even get hurt, other than a broken nose as a result of the airbag. That's it. And I had no seatbelt on.
So
I survived an unsurvivable
you're reflecting
car crash.
now. You get bail. Are you under house arrest at that point, or?
No, because I haven't been convicted of anything.
Okay.
So at that point, I'm free to do what I want.
How much time between that, getting bail, and then actually your hearing and all that stuff?
A year.
Oh, yeah. So you were walking free for a year.
I was walking free for a year.
Wow.
I mean, I really didn't have any restrictions.
Well, they wouldn't put restrictions on it because other than the bail. I don't even know how bail works. It must come with some restrictions. You can't skip town, or
you can't skip town, but you can leave. You don't have to stay in town. You just have to promise to appear.
Okay.
Promise to appear in court for your hearing.
Yeah.
But you have a lawyer. I had a lawyer. Your lawyer can show up on your behalf. That's that whole legal system, whatever. You know what I mean? And they can postpone. Well, okay, we're going to postpone till this date, or we're going to postpone till this date. So we postponed for a year. The reason was to give me time to get my life together. Because it was at that time when I got out of jail, when I got bail, when I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something different, that I went to rehab.
Actually, it's a miracle that you didn't go back to using.
I mean, I guess, yeah. That in itself is. I mean, I was pretty scared straight at that point. I wasn't using, wasn't on my mind.
Scared straight can only, it lasts, but it doesn't last forever.
No.
Eventually, humanity is that we take life for granted. It's just our part of our nature.
Yeah.
And so you might have started taking that for granted. Oh, well, I'm walking free. I'm good. I'm clean now. You could have done another. Well, it's been a year. I'm good.
Yeah. Right on the court date.
That's right. Yeah.
Show up to trial a little drunk.
Whacked out of your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So the year passes. You do your court date. Oh, sorry. Were you doing AA
Well, I think we shouldn't skip over rehab. Because
okay.
I did check myself. I did check myself into rehab.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Fairly quickly. Like, it was like I got out of jail. I got bail. I had a week of I'm scared straight, we'll call it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm freaking out. And after calling this person and that person, calling my mom, talking to my doctor, reacquainting myself with my sponsor, the people I knew from AA when I was 24, that's why that was important. Because I kind of like...
Did your lawyer suggest that as well? Or?
He was like, you need to get clean.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to get help.
Yeah.
I think that was his exact words, get help.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't be, go get help.
Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out, but get help. Doctor said, go get help. I had
So what kind of rehab was it?
I went to a private clinic in Nova Scotia, Crosby House.
So what year is that? 2017?
2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it was like right after. Like, we're talking like a week and a half.
Okay. So you're checked in. That's a 30?
I got in as soon as they would take me.
30 or 40-day program?
30-day program.
30-day program. And it's live-in.
Live-in 30-day program. And they took me as soon as I could get there, basically.
Because publicly funded programs are not as available now.
No.
Back when I went, they were available all over the place. And I remember I went down to Brockville and I spent my 30 days there in a rehab unit just below the Brockville psych. The story went that if you didn't do well in the rehab, you're going up to Brockville psych. So
is that what it was?
I don't think that's the truth, but that scared me too. I'm like, I don't want to go to Brockville psych,
No, Brockville. That doesn't sound fun.
So, but those programs, those are government funded and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that's readily available now, is it?
There are government programs, but you could be on a waiting list for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. From what I know, I have been out
Did
of
you have
that.
to do so before going into Brockville residential rehab unit?
Yeah.
They wanted me to go to a detox center.
Right. So they have detox in Nova Scotia as
Yeah.
well. I did not do detox. I did self-detox.
Yeah, so did I, by the way.
So it's
Thank goodness.
So I got out of jail. I basically called the rehab by the end of the week. I'd made the decision that, okay, this needs to happen. So I got the money. Let's make this happen. Call the rehab people. They're like, hey, well, you got to detox for a week. But if it's that bad, we'll take you sooner. I said, no, I can detox for a week.
Yeah.
Even though I had detox for a week, they wanted to know that I was detox for a week.
Yeah.
So they basically took me the following Friday. So it's like I got out on the Monday. I took a week of deliberation. By the end of that Friday, I decided I'm going to rehab. And by the following Friday, I'm checked into, by that weekend, I'm checked into Crosby House, which is the private rehabilitation center in the countryside of Nova Scotia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my experience with rehab was, well, I'll tell you, when I went to rehab, they did a question.
Mhm.
They did an interview, right? Like an intake.
Yeah.
I remember they asked me the question. They said, how would you rank your cocaine use? And they went from recreational to, addiction. I don't know. There's like 5
Right.
different, and I'm, in all sincerity, I say to them with from the heart of hearts saying, I'm pretty sure it's just recreational. So oh yeah, you're definitely qualified.
Yeah. Recreational.
Yeah.
Just
I really believed it
recreational,
in my
yeah.
sick brain. I thought, oh, it's recreational. I
Yeah.
used it like similar to you. I used it every day, all day,
Yeah.
and it was recreational.
Just
So,
recreational use.
yeah.
I just do it. I just do it for fun.
So,
You know,
if you're listening to this and you think it's recreational and you're doing it every day, it's not
It's
recreational.
not recreational.
No, you got a serious problem.
No.
And
I
it's
think
a-
I fit every single check mark for rehab. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh, you should 100% be here now. I said, yeah, that's why I'm calling. Let's get me
So you go in there, that's kind of scary because it's a whole different world.
You know the best thing about rehab? Let me tell you. I went in there and I was ready to run. I got dropped off and I was like, I'm going to literally run back to Halifax. It's 2 hours drive. I'm running. Catch me running. That was my experience. I got to rehab, shit myself, being like, I'm leaving. By the last day in rehab, I'm like, I'm not leaving. This place is great. Why would I want to leave
It's
rehab?
actually scary to leave
You're
rehab.
like, what? You're like, I don't want to leave. I'm
now
in
you
this
gotta go back to-
protection,
Yeah.
this bubble. Like everyone here is just so, holding me in. Like
You got to go
keeping
back
me-
to life now.
I was like, life? I was like, hell no. I was like, one of my friends that stayed an extra week. I was like, can I stay an extra week? They're like, you good. You can go home.
Well, in Ottawa, I don't know, but there's Jericho Road, which is kind
Yes.
of the next place you go to, and you stay there with.
Yeah.
And it's you can stay there. I think you were Jericho Road, James Mike. Were you? 9 months, yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's sort of the next level. So you don't have to go back out on your own and face the world.
And in Halifax,
yourself.
they have like an Alcare Center. It's called Alcare. And here I've heard of Jericho Road before.
Jericho Road's like a private, not for profit. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when I went to rehab,
Yeah.
I went in thinking, I'm going to come out and be able to use responsibly. Well, I was a dealer too. I thought, well, I'll be
But
able
it
to.
sounds like you were a little. I was convinced in rehab that I'm not using anymore.
Oh, no, I was
They
like,
had me at least. I was like, I'm good. Like I spent money well spent. I'm
No,
good.
I was.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll be able to use it responsibly and deal still.
Yeah.
So I continued to deal halfway, like up until about 15 days into my. I was calling my wife at the time, and I'm like, yeah, can you? This guy's gonna come pick this up, get this money. She was like,
Yeah.
And I was in my head, I'm like, okay, good. When I come out, I'll be able to continue this business and just, use recreation.
Well, they do say some are sicker than others. So maybe.
But I did come out knowing that. Well, I remember maybe I was like 22 days in, and I was like, I called up my wife and I said, you get rid of all the equipment, get rid of everything. When I come home, nothing can be there. It's got to be a clean house,
Yeah.
And so at some point it clicked in that I wasn't going to go back to dealing, nor was I going back to using.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So for you, you're at some point you realize this is actually a better place to be.
Yeah. I mean, someone once told me that rehab's an expensive step one. And I said, yeah, well, for some, that's the step one they need.
Yeah.
So I think it happened during rehab that I made the decision that this is what I was going to do. Yeah, I was fully on board. I didn't know how I was going to pan out and if I was actually going to do it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to commit to this.
So you come out.
Yeah.
30 days.
30 days.
Now you get into a program. You get into a 12-step program.
I was 12-stepping, right into the 12-step program. I jumped into AA and CA because of the cocaine use, and there was actually a prominent CA group in Halifax, so it made sense. And it was like fully young people. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, go to CA. You'll meet people your own age." I was like, "That's actually a big win for support when you have people in your own age group."
I'm a big AA guy.
Yeah,
I don't go anymore, but COVID hit and whatever. But only because I found the membership to be more stable.
It is, yeah. It's way more stable
in
AA, and I would agree with you on that. Like I did CA and I did AA. I did do AA.
I tried NA,
but I started my own group actually a year into being sober, and it was we kind of referred to it as a hybrid group. Like it was AA based, but it had some CA tenets in it.
Right.
But it was an AA meeting, and I think that's
NA, just for the audience, NA and CA, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, they're all 12-step based programs. Based on the original big book
exactly,
but I think modified for some specifics around that particular addiction. But so you're in AA now. You start an AA group, and I think you started because it was a lot of younger. You wanted to bring.
Well, I wanted to bring the young people to AA. Not that there wasn't young people at AA. I just felt like CA had the monopoly on the young people because it tends to be a drug that younger people use. My sponsor, who is 30 years, 20, 25 or 30 years older than I am.
Yeah.
He had never even tried those drugs in his life. You know, he was a drinker. He'd smoked some weed, but he was a drinker, and cocaine was completely foreign to him. Whereas when you went in CA, I'm not saying there weren't older individuals there. I'm just saying that it typically had a younger, geographical. Anyways, younger people.
So part of the process, especially my experience in the first year, it's really difficult year, a good year. I mean, it brings you to a really great place over time, but I found it really difficult in the first year because you're doing the steps. Step 4 is the first time you do a step 4, which is basically an inventory of your life. Now I was 32 when I got clean. You were 27.
27, yeah.
Yeah. So not big difference. I mean, there's a bit of an inventory there. You know, you accumulate some things over
a little bit.
10 or 15 years of use, right? And but what a great, the 12 steps is such a great thing.
It is. I think everyone who gets sober and does it through a program like AA or any 12-step program should actually do the 12 steps and should do them formally with a mentor or a sponsor, somebody who's done it already and can kind of guide them through them.
I think that I've only sponsored a few people, and I probably was an annoying sponsor because when they started the steps, I'd say, well, the only way I'm walking with you is if you do the steps. You know, I'm not interested in being a sponsor if you're not interested in doing the steps. Of course.
Why would you?
It's a 12-step program. And I would get really excited about it. I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, we're going to do this. And they're looking at me like, because, you know, they're fresh in recovery. They're like, this guy's whack. Yeah, what do you mean he's excited about this stuff? But I know.
What to sign up for.
Yeah, that's right. I know the results of it, right? I know that, this is going to change your life. You know? And so I would get very excited to see someone doing the steps.
Well, it's a life-changing experience. Yeah. My sponsor used to tell me, because he had a few sponsees, he's like, I get to do the steps again. He's like, I get to relive. He said, I watch you do your steps. I remember why I don't want to drink ever again.
Yeah.
He's like, it reconfirms my sobriety.
Oh, yeah.
It makes my recovery better because I'm doing service, but I'm also remembering why drinking is not right for me.
And you've sponsored people?
I have, yeah.
Do you notice when the sponsor comes in, they're almost vibrating? I mean, they're just, they're coming out of this craziness and they're like, you know, and the world's like spinning around them. And so you do the 12 steps. And now I'm a strong believer that if you don't, so the 12 steps was created by two Christian men, but it was created in a much more generic way that you didn't have to be Christian because they wanted it to be available for everybody.
Right.
They talk about a higher power. They talk about God. They talk about, I think higher power and God are the two things that are used.
And I use them still interchangeably because, you know, God is higher power and
Yes.
and vice versa.
But I'm a strong believer that if you don't have a relationship with God, and I don't believe that a higher power can be a rock
Mm-hmm.
or, this tree. I don't think that's
Yeah.
reality. I think that the higher power is a creator or something way greater than us. And I think if you don't have that in your life, staying clean is going to be very difficult.
I think so. I agree with that. Yeah.
My experience has been the people who refuse to accept God. It doesn't have to be Jesus necessarily, but if they don't accept God, that they're going to struggle their lives because, well, you got saved by God. Like you should be dead
Oh yeah.
or mangled, even worse than dead,
crippled.
mangled.
Yeah.
Yeah, crippled and mangled,
Yeah.
or killed somebody and live with the guilt of having taken
We
someone's
probably
life.
wouldn't be here if I had killed someone.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
there's a higher power because the higher power saved your sorry ass.
Oh, I personally do.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in God.
Yeah.
And I believe in higher power. When I got sober, I used the term higher power. I don't think I was ready to use the term God, even though it is used in the big book or the Alcoholics Anonymous book. But I realized quickly, especially after doing that step 4, that it was God. What
was your step 4, your 5, 6, and 7 when you actually went to someone and shared this, your steps? What was it like for you? Mine was, I'd like to share mine because it was pretty spectacular.
Oh, mine, it was like the writing process. I mean, I took it forever to write it. I kind of almost, I'll tell you this, I did 12 steps in 12 months and I stuck to that schedule.
Oh,
and step 4 took probably 3 of those months, but I'd still completed the full 12 steps in 12 months. And it took 3 months to do the writing and 1 day to tell my sponsor, maybe 1 or 2 days. I think I needed a little break in between, but we did it over 1 or 2 days. We got together. That's the step 5 process is, telling another alcoholic, telling God, telling another alcoholic the extent of your resentments in step 4. But it was the best process ever. I felt like the weight was lifted
in about a week.
A week?
I was unemployed. So when I got clean, because I was living off my drug dealing.
Yeah.
I was like homeless and broke. And, my wife and I had split up and, so I just had all this time. And I was seeing a therapist at the time. And I remember him saying to him, I said, "Oh, I feel like my head's going to explode." He goes, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "I've been doing my step 4. And he said, "Well, how much are you doing a day?" I said, "I'm doing it all day." He says, "Well, that's
all day,
that's not good.
8-hour shifts."
He says, "Your head won't explode." I've never seen anybody's head explode, but you probably should pay. Anyways, I was anxious to get it done. But I just want to share with you when I did my step 5 and 6, and I did it with a nun actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I confessed all this stuff to her, and it was very anticlimactic. It's like I still, even now, I'm Catholic. I do confession. I love confession. I don't like the preparation to confession, but I love confession. And it's always a very anticlimactic because I'm thinking, I'm telling them the worst stuff possible. And they're like, "Yeah, okay, let's pray about it and release it. It's done." It's not a big deal. So I get home.
It's like a mini step 4.
Yeah.
That's what I don't do confession, but
it's the same thing. It's
the same. It sounds like it's
12 steps is based on.
It's mini step 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just do it every Sunday or something.
No. I do it like once every 6 months.
Oh, okay.
No, I have lots of sins to confess, but
yeah.
But so I get home after this, doing the first few steps in the step 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I'm going, "Well, that was really anticlimactic." And then I go to sleep that night. I wake up the next day and I'm paralyzed, not physically. I can't leave the house. I'm looking outside. I'm like, my brain is freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm going, "What the hell's going on?" And I call up my therapist. I said, "Al, I'm I can't leave the house. I'm overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed." And he said, "Oh, you've done the steps. What you did was you released the past, and now you're experiencing the present. You're experiencing the sounds and the smells and the sights, something that was burdened with all the past that I was carrying with me."
Yeah.
And he said, "Just go for a walk outside. It'll normalize." And I did, and that's but it was the present hitting me all of a sudden because I was no longer stuck in the past. And that's what the steps do.
And that's what it does. It's a beautiful experience.
It is.
I found that yours not the same. There was no lightning bolt that came down and struck me, and there was no like moment of aha, I did it, But I feel like I did my step 4, and all that writing and all that deliberation and getting it out and confessing it to my sponsor and to God freed me from the past. Now, I knew though that the recovery process wasn't over, and I had a lot of work to do. And I actually did another step 4 later on due to Not that it was, I feel like I had missed things. So I was like, I'm going to be thorough. Like I really believed at this point in being thorough.
Yeah.
But I did find that at that point, I wasn't paralyzed, but it was like a wave of like emotions was just let out. Like it might have been the day or the week after. There was a moment where it was like, it wasn't like the next day, but it was like a week later or something. I just like broke down in tears.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I felt so free and so light, and the burden had been completely lifted off me. And I was like, now I'm ready to walk in this life.
So this is exciting. This is why I get excited.
Yeah.
When I haven't sponsored in a long time, but when I get a sponsor, a sponsee, I'm so excited because it's so free.
Yeah.
Like the steps are so freeing.
Oh yeah.
It is
Life-changing.
And by the way, I think the steps apply to everybody in life. Everybody in life should do the 12 steps.
I mean, you could apply it to a lot of things.
You don't have to say,
Yeah.
I was powerless over alcohol. I'm powerless over a lot of things in my
Yeah.
life. I'm going through a legal thing right now, and I'm powerless over that. I'm just gonna I'm handing that off to God. I'm not even gonna worry about it because I am powerless. And so I actually took the 12 steps and I converted them into a more generic 12 steps. So it doesn't mention addiction. Like, I'm powerless over my life, or I'm powerless over my situation, or I'm powerless over, these things. And so I created these 12 steps for life rather than for just addicts,
Yeah.
Because it does, because the reconciliation, the confession process is a life.
Those 12 steps can apply to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, some people use it for smoking,
Yeah.
even like smoking cigarettes. You can use it for sex, gambling, a bunch of addictions, or just like life in general.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's that freeing process that it gives. I mean, it's not about shifting burden to somebody else.
No,
It's about owning it.
it's owning
and
it,
owning it and taking action.
looking at your side of the street and saying, where are my weeds?
Where's
I'm not
where's
gonna
the
go,
trash that I left?
I sometimes I want to go fix somebody else's weeds, but most of the time I like to stay in my garden and sift through my weeds.
Usually when someone pisses me off,
yeah.
I have to, and it's like a week's gone by and I'm still thinking about how they piss me off.
Yeah, because you're standing in their garden.
And I'm like, oh man, I think this has more to do with me than it has to do with them. So,
yeah, how come their garden is so messy? What the hell? What's wrong with their garden?
What did they do? What did that guy do?
Yeah.
Oh man, getting on my nerves like that. But I do find like, as much as I was relieved, what it did was it allowed my spiritual journey to go. So I think step 4 is like pinnacle, because a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, some people don't make it. They get to step 4 and they go back, let's say. And that's their choice. That's their journey. I got over the step 4 hump. My spiritual journey just like exponentially like skyrocketed. Now I was alleviated from all this baggage. And that's kind of how I referred it to. It's like I got to put the bags down. God came into my life, helped me with that. I got to confess it. And I said, now I get to move on. I get to go down the spiritual journey. I get to do the other steps. I get to start actually doing the recovery stuff.
So one of the steps is, actively acknowledging where you go wrong and making amends for it, right? And I like that part. That part's a lot easier than doing the step 4 because it's very current and present, and it's something that's current that's happening that I need to either make amends for, or acknowledge my part, and a spiritual awakening comes from that. But I believe going back and I believe in doing a confession at least once a year, and confession really is just taking inventory, presenting it to someone, and then being absolved of that, praying it, giving it to God, right? Because I can do a confession and then get in my car and someone cuts me off and I'm cursing and swearing. I'm like, oh, okay, I better start making my list again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we all fall short of the mark.
Yeah.
And so we're all messing up in a given year.
Yeah.
And it's really good to just release that at least once a year. I think
it is good.
Yeah.
It is good to get it off your chest.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've done it recently,
but it's important. The key component in it, and it's actually in biblical, is doing it with another person. So it's easy for me to say, oh Lord, I messed up, forgive me, and he forgives me.
Yeah.
But to say it to another person requires some humility.
It really does.
It's very humbling.
Yeah.
To confess to somebody. I wouldn't just confess to anybody.
Yeah.
But to confess to someone, a human being, is much more powerful. It's much more healing.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you know that someone's listening to you.
Yeah. And you could be judged. And there's like this, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this to this person.
Yeah.
I love going into the confessional because, it's like, I'm actually terrified going in. I can't believe I'm going to say these things to this person. And
this holy person.
And then it's just like, well, you're forgiven your sins. I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
was anticlimactic. It's
Yeah.
like, it's anticlimactic every time.
It
The
is.
buildup is inside of me getting into that booth.
Yeah.
But I think it is a life process.
It is a life process. It never ends. Like I do find that my meditation and prayer every day is reflective of like a step 4. I guess you call it step 11. Step 10, 11 is prayer and
But I think
meditation.
it's important to do with a person too.
It is. 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
In fact, now you're making me think I should probably do it with a person at some point in the near future.
Because it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. Okay, so Ted, 27, you get clean, you get into rehab, you do the steps, you're going into a program, you actually create your own AA group.
Yep.
And so what is life like now? Like when you reflect back on all the madness that got you to 27 years old.
Oof.
And, I'm not going to give away all, but I mean, your book is a lot more of your life story than just the addiction.
It is.
You have quite a life story. I'm familiar with it because I know your life story, bit of it anyways.
Yeah.
And, it's quite the life story. And, now looking back, almost 7 years into recovery, right?
Yeah, well, it will be in 6.5.
6.5.
We'll just go 6.5.
6.5 years into recovery, looking back, and you look at the madness that was your life.
Yeah.
Like what message do you have for people that, because when we live life and this craziness, and I have a crazy story and it just seems normal, just like, oh, this is life. This is, I'm not thinking when I've told my people my story after when I'm clean and they're like, oh my God, that's a horrific story.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, it's just my story. Like, it's just what I lived, I don't think of it as huge, but it is huge. Your life story is huge.
Well, for people who are in the program and know the program, I will say this, that the promises do come true.
Yes.
And they'll know.
What are the promises? Do you remember them?
Do I remember the promises?
I don't.
No, I don't. So I don't want to be put on the spot for that.
Okay. Well, I think the promises are that life gets better.
Life, you know what? They're in there. I wrote them down.
Okay.
They are part of the book.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I don't remember them either. I just remember they were good.
You know what? I do remember my sponsor used to say to me every single day, "This too shall pass."
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
The good and the bad, but especially the bad. And that is actually a message in the AA people or the program people will get that as well. Because I remember thinking, if this doesn't get better, I don't know if I can keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I would call my sponsor, talk to people, and I was told time and time again, and I'm talking a few times a day even, that this too shall pass, this too shall pass. And I think it's important to remember that as hard as it is, it does actually get better when you put in the work. Well, the action actually translates to a reward in your life. And those promises that I can't remember off the cusp.
Well, I think one of them,
true.
if I'm not mistaken, and the most important one to me is that you will have joy in your life.
And I do.
And joy will transcend. Doesn't mean life is easy. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have difficult times in life. It doesn't mean any of those things. But in the midst of all those things, and when you're going through turmoil or when something painful happens, or you have joy, and joy transcends all those things. Joy can coexist with pain, and the joy is this knowing and living a life with your God that is more than the struggle, more than a breakup, or more than financial woes, or more than
well, that's in there too. Your financial woes will disappear.
Yeah.
Now you're jogging my memory.
There you go.
The financial woes. Well, that's not the quote, but it is. Your financial problems will go away. Your joy will be resumed. In your life.
Yeah. And so
I wish we had the screen. We say, hey, can someone get that up on the screen
James,
here?
Can you pull up the screen there?
Pull up the
We don't have a screen. We actually have a screen right there.
That's your next thing. You need the
next
screen.
thing.
And then you look and you're like, there's the promise.
That's right. Can we get a camera on that?
Yeah. That's the Joe Rogan.
But joy for sure.
Yeah.
And so, I think the message to anybody who is struggling with addiction or is getting clean doesn't mean life is easy. Life is difficult.
No.
But life is so full and beautiful and amazing in the midst of the difficulty.
It is. Well, I said it to James earlier because we were chatting actually before we started this, and I said, the one thing I notice now versus the first year of sobriety, we'll call it that time frame, is that my day to day, I'm like you said, your joy is not like being happy 24/7, but it's like I deal with life with life now. Like I just deal with normal life. Like I don't think about the booze. I don't think about the drugs.
Yeah.
I'm just dealing with life as it comes. Does that mean every day is amazing? No, there's shitty days, but I actually can cope with those days because I'm living in joy. My life is joyful
joy is not
today.
happiness. Happiness is
No, those are two separate
happiness
things.
is fleeting.
Yeah.
You could be happy one minute and sad the next. But
I would
joy
say my
is
sobriety
consistent.
and my recovery gave me joy. It restored joy to my life. I don't know if there was, I think we're all joyful. Well, anyways, the point is it restored this.
It either
this
restored
joy.
it or brought it for the first
Brought
time.
it, yeah. That's what I was going to say. For me, I'm sure I was joyful as a kid. You know, you have those joyful moments.
I'm sure there was moments.
Yeah, sure. Crazy childhood. But then, yes, the joy was restored to my life, and it was through the steps. It was through working with God or higher power and doing the actions. And I think that's like the key. I would say it's actually one of the main things I talk about in my book. Throughout the whole thing is action. It doesn't there's not you can't sit on the couch and hope for the best. You can't pray for the best. I'm not saying prayer and meditation aren't good, but you just can't sit there and hope. You have to actually go out and do it. And that action is what brought me that joy. It's what brought me liberation from drinking and drugs, and it gave me sobriety, but more importantly, it gave me recovery.
Yeah. And in that journey, it's not perfect. And you're going to make mistakes.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
A journey's not perfect.
It's progress, not perfection. That part I remember.
Now we're just doing the AA slogans back and forth.
That's right.
Yeah.
But if you're going through the process, this journey, you're going to screw up. You're going to trip. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things you shouldn't do. You're going to, and that's not the end of the world. I think the difference is that, and especially in my faith, is that I turn from shame to acknowledgement of what I've done and then just moving on, and not beating myself up over it, that you're going to make mistakes and things are going to happen.
Mistakes are good. That's the growth that comes. And you can actually accept it now I don't want to say sobriety because sobriety is like abstinence from alcohol. It's recovery. In recovery, you can accept those mistakes. You can accept, you're not shameful of them. You're almost like open eye. Oh, I made a mistake. Great. Now I have an opportunity to grow. I have an opportunity to apologize for my actions or right my wrongs. And I don't have to be shameful.
And you don't beat yourself up over it.
No.
You move on.
You move on to the next thing.
I remember something happened at work and one of the employees was really upset and I had made a mistake. So I said to him, yeah, you're right. I was wrong. I made this mistake. I'm really sorry. And then I went on with my day and he came up to me later. He goes, "What, you think you could just get off that easy?" I said, "Yeah, I've acknowledged my mistake and I've corrected it. And,
if you do the part, if you do the action, correct it, make things right.
And I've done what I need to do. I'm not going to, he wanted me to beat it because our society says beat up on yourself over and over and over again. Yeah. Social media is brutal. It can be brutal on people. Yeah. You make one mistake and they want to destroy your lives. Right.
Yeah.
And that's our culture says that, but God says, no, if you acknowledge it and you repent, which basically repent just means turn away from whatever you were doing and make it better, then you're good.
You got to right the wrongs too. You got to do your best to right
if you can.
If you can.
I mean,
you can't always
I couldn't fix all the wrongs. But
no, you can't fix everything.
No.
But there's a portion where you can make right. Like if you owe someone money or something, you got to pay them back.
I think you owe me money.
Maybe. Yeah.
So if you had a message, addictions is common. It's out there, and a lot of people know they're addicts or struggling, and they don't want to admit it. But if you could give some advice to the person who's really struggling, or the newcomer, or the person who at 24 who gets sober but not necessarily recovered, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that if they put the work in, there is something amazing on the other side.
And not alone. You don't have to do the work alone.
No, not at all.
And in fact, you shouldn't do it alone.
You shouldn't do it alone. I was blessed to have an immense support system, friends, families, professionals along my side in my journey. I would also say to them, if you put the work in, the journey is more rewarding than any destination you can imagine. Where I thought I would be 6.5 years ago is nowhere I imagined I would be. And I couldn't be more grateful for it.
Yes. Do you ever look back and go, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Because I look back at my life before 32 and I'm like, who the hell is that guy? He looks like me. He's got the same physical appearance.
I don't even know if I look the same.
Well, maybe, but this guy's like nuts. Like he's
Yeah.
really messed up.
Yeah.
And I look at my life now and it's like so amazing.
Hmm.
I mean, it's got problems, I'm going through some personal things,
Everyone has that.
but
Like, well, not that, but
well,
everyone has
I'm pretty
problems.
good at that.
Yeah.
But, but it's great. It's an amazing life.
Yeah.
But I look at that guy and that guy was miserable. That guy I literally went to bed every night thinking about death.
Hmm.
You wouldn't know it, but that guy was miserable, like an awful life. Who is that guy?
Right. But I think, what came about from where you were and where I was I realized the more work I put in, the more grateful I was.
Mm.
And that gratitude just built upon more gratitude, and gratitude, action and gratitude, action and gratitude.
So let me ask you that question
Yeah.
around gratitude. So I start my mornings, and, I wake up early. I spend probably a good hour now with my time with God, praying, reading scripture, but in gratitude. So
Mhm.
I start, I try and remember to start before I do anything else. I get my coffee. I'm sitting in the dark up there. You've seen it.
Yeah.
And I try and just go through a list of things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And no, not out loud, just in my head, or maybe out loud. It depends who's in the house. But starting with gratitude,
Is one of the best ways to start the day.
it's the best way to start the day. I
You
mean,
know?
I probably could go on for an hour, but
You could go on
I'm
forever.
grateful that I'm alive. I'm
That's a
grateful
good
that
one.
I have a God who loves me.
Yeah.
That I have and wants to be in a relationship with me. I'm
Yeah.
grateful, and I can go on and on. I mean, it starts with just waking up in the morning. Oh, I woke up. Oh,
Yeah.
my hands and my feet work.
Yeah.
My brain works. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. The gratitude's me. I actually find sometimes it's when I'm angry,
Yeah.
it's good to go over what I'm grateful for. It really
Yeah, yeah.
calms me down quickly.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially because I live in Toronto, right? So when I'm driving in Toronto, which can be like the living hell,
I would be angry all the time.
you're
I'm a very
angry.
aggressive
I was actually
driver.
very angry when I moved there because of the traffic.
Yeah.
Because didn't realize how bad it was until I was actually stuck in it, and I was angry. I was like road rage all the time, and I had to stop after a year and realize I was like, man, what are you grateful for?
Yeah.
You have a car. You're driving. Most people take the subway.
Yeah.
You don't have to take the subway if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And I started just listing off things that I was grateful for, and I came to the realization I would calm down. It was like,
Of course.
but what is gratitude? What is doing that gratitude list? It's an action.
It's
And
an
I think
action.
that goes back to one of my core tenets is actions.
Yeah.
If you do the actions, and there's a whole chapter on specific actions that I took, like detailed, this is what I did, and this thing led to that thing, and that action led to that action. And it started with physical stuff, like
Yeah.
going to the gym, being active, because I was like, the easiest way to express action is doing something actively, right? So for me, it was sports or going to the gym. That's kind of what I did to get started. And then the rest of the stuff came a little bit more naturally. Even those gratitude lists started coming a little bit more naturally. You don't even have to write them down. They're just in your head. They pop up.
Oh, yeah.
But that's still an action. It's doing that.
I'm pretty sure I'm on your list of gratitude.
Yeah.
But I have such a great uncle.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like
I'm
down
just-
in between
I'm just
15 or
inserting
25,
That's right.
Yeah.
Exercise, yes. So, in
Huge.
my podcast, one of the things I emphasize is some of the sort of the basic pillars of a good life.
Mhm.
One of them is spiritual.
Yeah.
One of them is sleep, but one of them is exercise, like physical activity.
The 3 pillars of recovery. There's a chapter on that.
I don't know what those are either.
I know you haven't got that.
I haven't been
that's
in
that's
the
the end of
pro-
the book.
Oh, wow.
So if you haven't,
Can I start at the back and go for it?
Sure,
the other
that
way?
works too,
Like an
yeah.
Arab, I'll just read back to front. Exercise is a good thing. I think,
Yeah.
in fact, when I was in the rehab unit,
Yeah.
we would do like calisthenics or something in the morning, which
Yeah.
I hated.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
But exercise is really healthy.
Yeah.
Exercise, good sleep, reduced stress. There's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, because mine was physical, mental, spiritual.
Yeah.
Those were my 3 pillars of recovery. And the physical was that physical exercise. And by doing the physical exercise, whether it was whatever activity it was, it kind of led to like mental clarity, which allowed for more reading and writing, journaling, which is a form of, step 4, just putting something on paper.
Yeah.
And then the spiritual stuff was that prayer and that higher power stuff, that's above these worldly things, that meditation or prayer and all of those things. It's like it almost has to be done in that order. It has to be physical, mental, spiritual. I talk about that because I found that by doing the physical first, it just opens the door.
So I would say I'm spiritual first and then
Yeah, but you say that, but a little bit to disagree with you, but you're already a physical person. You go to the gym, you're an active
right. But if
person.
and
I feel like if you didn't have that in your life, maybe the spirituality might be a little bit more complicated or harder to achieve. You have a clear mind and a clear body, so you can enter spirituality.
Maybe you're right. Yeah. But I start my morning in the spiritual realm.
Right.
And
yeah, I mean,
to
I don't
me,
go
that's
to the
like
gym.
the best way to start my day. If I can't go work out that day, I'm still good for the day.
Yeah.
You know?
But I didn't mean about starting.
But if I worked out and I didn't start my day with my spiritual, my connection with God, my day probably wouldn't go as well. It would go maybe exactly the same, but I wouldn't deal with it as well.
No, 100%. Like you need to have that to get your day going.
Yeah.
No, I don't do the gym first thing in the day. I just meant more so in recovery.
Yeah.
Because for people that might be listening that are, getting sober, the physical thing was the first thing that helped me get to that spiritual realm or that spiritual level.
Cool.
It opened the doors.
So let's close off here, Teddy. So your book, The Chips Are on the Table. You can get it from Amazon, right?
You can get it anywhere. You can get Indigo, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles.
They're all owned by the same, aren't they? They're all
probably
one big conglomerate.
I could imagine.
And you're doing an audio version.
Yeah, and there's
is
like
that available
Apple
yet?
Books, Google Books, just to do like.
Is there a digital version?
Yes, so Amazon Kindle, of course.
There's a Kindle version.
There's a Kindle version, Kobo version. So there's all the digital versions. There's the physical versions, hard copy, and
soon to be
hardcover, softcover, and soon to be on Audible and Spotify and an audiobook.
Okay,
The recording was done before 2024.
Yeah,
it's currently being edited.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to that. I'll listen to it in my car. I'm a terrible reader, but
you can.
I have ADD. I'm
blasted on the speakers.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for maybe helping at least one person out there.
That's all.
With information, and that's what we're all about. We're just if I can change one person's life, I'd be happy.
That's the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
It was great.
Don't forget to subscribe and like and all the things that, help us be a show.
To grow.
There you go. Thanks, Ted.
Awesome. Thank you.